This is Jason from Laundry List, and today I'm excited because we're here with
Mackenzie.
She has a purchase and sale agreement in hand to buy a laundromat. Let's get into the deal structure of what you did.
I love doing laundry. So when I started to build my list of businesses that I was interested in, I really wanted to pursue things that I'm interested in, that I am curious about, or that I enjoy doing.
You should do a wash, dry, fold with me.
Yes.
A pickup and delivery. Yes. You now hone in on this laundromat. Mm-hmm. You find out that the laundromat sellers hired a broker.
Yep.
You're now communicating with the broker. What happens when all of a sudden you get serious? The broker's first communication with you is, did they provide the actual numbers? Like, what happened from when you first contacted the laundromat, which you found out was a broker? What happened?
Yeah, so contacted, filled out my inquiry, got a call back from the broker, and
so he just wanted to know your name, your contact. Didn't ask for proof of anything at this stage?
Yeah, no, not at this stage. So I would say a few days later they did. So it was just like, what are you interested in? What are you looking for? Very little get to know you, but just like, are you real?
So they were vetting you as a potential buyer.
Yes.
Which is probably pretty common for any serious seller.
Yes. So then probably 24 hours later, they did ask me to email proof of funds, which I did, grabbed my screenshot from my Fidelity account, shipped it over, and then I signed their NDA and they started sending over the documents.
So before even an NDA, they wanted to see proof you could afford it. Mm-hmm. You were going to buy it with cash.
I was at the time.
All right, so that we're going to get into that.
Yeah.
All right, so now you sign the NDA. Mm-hmm. The next step is they need to fork over numbers.
Exactly. So one thing that I thought was very interesting is this was my first broker experience. I felt like they didn't really want to give me a lot of information.
It's like you were pulling teeth from the broker who's trying to convince you to buy this laundromat. Yeah.
So I felt like out of the gate, it was a little imbalanced. And I don't think I was asking for the world, but it was just, everything was like, oh, well, we should be able to get this to you in a day. And I was like, gosh, a day?
And you already proved that you had money sitting and available for what was not a cheap laundromat.
Right. So at that point, though, I had this moment like, oh my gosh, I've never done due diligence on officially buying a business. So I called one of my mentors who's bought many businesses. And I was like, Sam, how do I go about doing this? And so we worked together. He hopped on the phone. He's like, here's like the 10 things you're going to want to start digging into right now.
Did the broker give you the numbers and the general information?
Yeah. So the broker sent me like a 3-page PDF of here's how much we're asking for. Okay. Here's how much net profit the business makes. And then here's how many machines we have, washers and dryers. So I had like an outlay of the basic numbers.
It was up to you to decide, based on their ask price and the little amount of information they gave you, is this something that you want to make an offer on?
Yes.
And that's when you called in Sam.
Yes.
And he said, well, let's look at these 10-ish things.
Exactly.
All right.
Yeah. And Sam was like, look, and again, you have to also like think about who's in your network because there's only so much like internet research and, YouTube content that's going to give you the information that you need. And, his advice to me was, this is a 5 multiple business. Like that's a lot for a laundromat.
Yeah.
That's a lot. That's a steep price. So they better be making a lot of money. They better have great updated equipment, etc. So that was like my first this may be an overpriced business.
Yeah, I completely agree with Sam and his instincts.
Yes. Yeah. So that was
ironically, if I were to sell this, it would take a 7x multiple because I like this business. I don't I would require a premium on top of a premium for me to get out because that's how much I like the laundromat.
Right.
And I honestly think if there's a seller out there that is trying to command a high premium and there's a real reason for it, that's a good business.
Yeah.
But you have to verify the numbers. And I think that's the hardest thing that a lot of people will face when it comes to laundromats. Because how do you know? Like when I bought this, I used a little bit of common sense and some business experience to kick the tires and figure out if the seller really was presenting numbers that made sense. And it turns out they were really honest people, but it was really hard. And also the price wasn't so high. The multiple was pretty low. I didn't care. And I had that luxury, but I remember I think I said this to you, if it were me, like I would have pause, and then we'll get into that in a second. But all right, so you now have these 10 things that you're looking for, and what happened as you were beginning to ask questions about the things that you were trying to find out about?
Yeah, they were forthcoming with kind of the basics that I was asking for, and they got that over to me very quickly.
Okay.
And at that point, I had asked, I think somewhat naively, for a 60-day due diligence phase, which I believe you told me and several people that I contacted that was excessive. And the broker was like, there's no way in heck we're going to do 60 days. But I had never done a due diligence. So I was like, I want to take as much time as possible.
Yeah, well, instinctively, that's the correct approach.
So I was trying to figure out, like, how much time do I take? How much time do I need to do this due diligence?
Just because I think it'll come out a little bit later in this podcast. What time of year was this? This was like September, October?
September.
The process started rolling in September. Mm-hmm. And I think it's important. The reason I even asked that is because it did come up as you and I began to speak, and it did come out a little bit in some of the negotiations. But you want to look at when the laundromat's high season is and when the low season is, because that might help or hurt negotiations.
Right. Yes. I agreed to do a 30-day due diligence phase, which I felt like was enough as long as I got the information that I needed. And I could do all the things that I wanted to do on my checklist, which was extensive.
On the list of 10 items, what were the 3 to 5 things that were absolute must-haves that you really were not going to make any kind of offer unless you had clarity on certain things? What were they?
So the last 3 years of their income statements.
Okay, so you wanted to see their full 3-year P&L.
Yep. Full year, three-year P&L. I wanted to see their bank statements because this is a lot of the business was cash. So I wanted to see and validate that the cash was going into this bank and like it was actually being reported as revenue.
Yep.
And then I wanted to see their service records. I wanted to see a 3-year review of service maintenance on the machines. Right. So I could have an indication of, are these machines as old as I think they are? Right. And that could help me decide CapEx for the future.
Right.
Like how much am I going to have to invest in this business in 3 to 5 years if these machines at the time were 14, almost 15 years old?
Right. All right. So you get this information. Nothing really scared you. You used it to help shape what your offer would be. So you didn't get scared. And now you're at the point where you're ready to make an offer.
Yes.
You're nervously thinking, who did you strategize with for an offer? If you're okay, can we talk about the numbers?
Sure.
This laundromat was asking, I think it was $475,000.
$475.
You're not just going to give them $475,000 because there was things that you saw or didn't see. But ultimately, what did you offer and how did you decide to offer that amount?
Yeah. Out of the gate, I remember the first things that I said when I looked at their numbers, just like in all of my years of working in business, was, I think this is overpriced. And what I've heard so many people tell me is, you determine if something's overpriced or not based on what you want to pay.
Yeah.
And so I just said, well, I don't believe that this business is worth the 5X multiple.
Right. All the numbers they presented to you were all true, right? It was just a matter of whether you were willing to pay 5X. So they were basically clearing $100,000 cash flow a year. Based on what you were seeing, it wasn't worth 5 times $100,000, but they weren't lying or anything. They were, they were presenting real numbers.
Yeah.
And you were just evaluating whether it was worth it to you.
Yes. I offered 420. So basically, a little over 4 multiple.
Yep.
And I offered that at the time based on, I could see over 3 years that they were clearing every year $100,000 in their pocket. There were some other funny things that they were doing with that, but I was like,
not enough to scare you.
Not enough to scare me. I'll get it clean. I'm going to clean the books. It'll be good.
Right. Okay.
And then when I started to, so I put down 420, and that was like that first response back.
Right.
But this was going to be a cash offer.
Right.
Which
is a pretty sweet deal.
Yeah.
Because there's no risk to the seller in terms of, are you going to get financing?
Yep.
And then do they have to justify their numbers 20 times over to all the other parties that are involved with creating a loan for you?
Yep.
So that's, I'm sure, in the back of the seller's mind, like, okay, this is a cash deal. It might not be exactly what I want. And this is a lesson to a lot of people looking to buy laundromats. Just because someone's asking for a certain multiple doesn't mean they're going to get it.
Right.
And I've said this before, as a seller of businesses in the past, when that seed is planted that you want to sell your business, even if you're not looking to sell, like if you were to put an offer to me right now, I would seriously consider it. Whether I wanted to sell or not.
Yes.
Because when a seed is planted, what typically happens is you say, it's, that's not enough. It's that. Then you go home and you talk about it with your spouse. And then it's like, well, if I had that money and we just put it in the bank, it could generate.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, the wheels start turning.
Yes.
And before you know it, if you wanted $1 million, 700 doesn't sound so bad.
Yeah.
So don't be discouraged if someone's asking a lot of money, because once that seed is planted with a real offer on the table, business owners will consider it. Whether you think or whether they think they will or not, they do.
Okay, so that's very, I'm just going to say this one thing. Someone that I asked to also help in addition to you did the exact thing that you just said, was not planning on selling and said, because you've called me, I'm going to work with my wife and we're going to put the numbers out. And he came back to me and said, this was another business. During this negotiation.
Was this a laundromat?
Yes.
You see?
And I was like, oh my gosh, I was not expecting that. And that's not why I reached out to this gentleman.
Right.
And he still is. We texted a week ago. He's so helpful to me. But he seed planted, went home, drew up the numbers and said, I don't want to mess up your deal, but I wanted to tell you this is on the table.
You make the offer of 420. Mm-hmm. Does the seller immediately say, we'll take it?
No, they do not.
So what happened? How much time passed?
I would probably say this was like maybe a couple of days. Like it's pretty quick at that point where there's the back and forth. We're texting and emailing every day at that point.
You and the broker?
Yes, exactly.
Did you have any direct contact with the actual owners of the business?
So that was on my first call with the broker, I said, when will I meet the sellers? Because that is a requirement for me. I need to meet them ideally in person. But if we can't do that, I need to meet them on the phone like ASAP.
I think that's a great idea for even when there's brokers involved, which a lot of businesses do involve brokers, meeting the owners and assessing directly with the owners is, I think, a great idea. Yeah.
So, we met, actually, the owners were introduced to me probably a week after I submitted the offer.
Okay.
And we had, I think, subsequently 3 more meetings.
So they accepted it at that point, or they still hadn't accepted it, and it was a week went by?
Yeah. So I would say a week went by. They had not accepted it.
I'm guessing after they met with you and after they thought about everything, they probably then accepted.
Yes. Yeah. So at that point, like we put the offer out and we said, okay, so as long as the due diligence comes out in the way that's going to work for me.
Right. As long as the numbers are verified.
Then we're going to move forward with this offer.
They accept the offer about a week or 2 after you submitted it.
Yep.
Now, I'm guessing you almost kick into panic and scramble mode because you have about 30 days to make good on that offer or walk away.
Yes.
Now I come into the picture.
Yes.
You send me an email. You asked if I'd be willing to assist, possibly for pay. I said, keep your money. I'm more than happy to help you because I could talk business all day. And especially if I could learn about another laundromat or 2 or 3. The only thing I asked was that you come on this podcast and share your experience.
Yes.
Walk the audience through what happens after you contact me.
Yes. So, you said it, like at this point I was like, whoa, the LOI has been accepted and I have 30 days to get this going. And then I think at that point, I had to submit a $25,000 non-refundable deposit.
After 30 days.
After 30 days. Like, at that day 30. Like that was when
the clock is ticking.
The clock was ticking. So I was like, I need to reach out to people like you that can help me assess the gaps that I don't see.
Right.
And one of the gaps that we'll get to is the competition. But like there were pieces that you pointed out that I did not see and I would not have seen in those 30 days.
And other people hadn't necessarily pointed that out.
The people that I had on like my speed dial own businesses in Chicago and Indiana. Like they didn't know this area. They didn't know Laundromat specifically in Western Mass.
Right.
So like I felt like I needed to go hyper local to help me. That's why I said, I will pay a consulting fee. Like it is worth any amount of time, even an initial investment, to make sure I make a long-term decision.
I completely agree. It's worth it because even if you were to pay someone $1,000 or $2,000, like that could save you thousands in the future. We agree to go down to the laundromat. Now, what you didn't know is what I did behind the scenes in preparation of going. So
this was too good.
So the first thing that I did, and this is what I would do if I was looking to buy a laundromat now. I go into Google, I do a search for laundromat. You know, lots of people come up in the Google business profile. But I honed in on the exact area where you were going to be.
Yep.
When I did the search, I noticed 3.7 stars, one laundromat, 3.9, another 4.1. And then there was one that had 4.9 stars and about 60 or 70 reviews. And that told me not only are they doing things well, they're probably pretty new.
Yeah.
Because, typically businesses won't have more than 100 reviews unless they've been in business for 10 years. It's just the nature, and it depends obviously on the business, but the nature of a small mom and pop business is, unless you're really aggressive about getting Google reviews, you don't tend to get more than a few a year.
Yeah.
So when I see this, now my radar is going off. And I do a little research, and I decide before we meet at the laundromat that you're looking to buy, I'm going to go visit this other laundromat because I found out it was a mile from where you were looking to buy.
1 mile.
Listen, there's plenty of laundromats that could be within half a mile, and they serve completely different markets and different needs. But this one, I needed to see firsthand. So I go there, in which I'm going to show the audience because I took video and I spoke to people in that laundromat. Turns out that laundromat had only been a laundromat for less than 6 months. So my intuition was correct that it was new and they're doing something right. I walked in there and I started drooling because that laundromat was beautiful.
Beautiful.
Everything was new. And then of course I needed to know who the owner was, and I started researching a little bit. I found out this isn't his first rodeo.
Nope.
He owns a few. His other laundromats also, not in the same area, in different states, they all do well. They're all modeled after the same thing. So now I'm getting curious. You have numbers from the laundromat you're looking to buy, and they were up until like September.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Because that's when you started getting the numbers. But now we're in December, or it was like November.
Yeah, exactly.
Somewhere in November, December. And I was like, well, September would have been a little early to notice any big changes if this big competitor was suddenly taking business away. You and I meet at the laundromat. I mean, at the one you're going to buy.
Yep.
We walk in, and one of the things you wanted to know is what I thought of the machines.
Yeah.
I wanted to know how old the machines were. What we found out was the machines were put in place when they started the laundromat. So they were already 15 years old.
Yep.
And I wanted to know what the pricing on the machines were, because you didn't know how much they were charging for each wash. You didn't know how much they were charging for each dry. And I wanted to know that because I thought it was important to know, do you have room to increase price?
Right.
Because you might be able to immediately earn an extra few thousand a month.
Yeah.
If a price hike is in order. We go in, we look at the machines, and I remember my first impression was the machines are old, but they were in good shape.
Yeah.
I was pleasantly surprised with how well they seemed to be taken care of. They still looked kind of new. Like they didn't look beat up or run down. So that was a good sign. I was also impressed with the fact that there were a lot of people in that laundromat.
Yes.
I was really surprised at how busy it was because it wasn't a peak day. I don't think it was a Sunday.
No.
I think it was a Saturday.
Yeah, I think it was a Saturday.
But it was, it was like, middle afternoon on a Saturday, and it was busy. Before you showed up, I got to that laundromat early, and I started talking to the attendants. And I think if you have the opportunity to talk to attendants, because they will tell you everything you need to know, and they will help verify whether they know it or not. They're going to verify the numbers that their boss just gave you. And one of the things I was asking was, hey, did you hear about this new Oh yeah, this laundromat, we've seen a decrease in our business, right? And this is what one of the staff was telling me. And so they were confirming what my instincts were already probably telling me. So you and I do our visit.
Yep.
We then, I remember it was in a shopping complex. We then sat on a bench outside. The weather was still warm enough.
Yep.
We sat on a bench outside and we started talking about the laundromat. Do you remember any of the issues that I raised that I was concerned about?
So you definitely flagged the competition and how close it was. A mile, like that was one of the issues.
And that those numbers wouldn't have been reflected yet.
Yes.
But you need to get October, November, December to see how those numbers compared to a previous year, because that's when you begin to see the impact of a competitor.
Correct.
Was there anything else that I pointed out?
Okay, so you also didn't love the free dry.
Yes.
That was going to be just a problematic pricing model.
Well, that meant you could never go to self-service only. You always had to have somebody there, which, it can be good and bad, but not if you don't want to have somebody there at 6 a.m. if you wanted to expand the hours, or 10 p.m. because I think that laundromat was like 7 to 9.
Yes,
and,
exactly.
You might want to do 6 to 10 or something.
Right.
The other thing that I think I noticed was there were no credit card capabilities.
Yes.
I happen to know, having installed it on my own, that when you have approximately, I think there was like maybe 50 or 60 machines in that laundromat total, that's a lot of money. That's probably a $20,000 to $30,000 capital investment just to convert to credit card. That's in addition to whatever you're paying for the laundromat. I think you pointed out that they had 6 people, and that seemed like overkill. And it definitely was overkill.
Yeah. I think they do a lot of wash and fold. And I think the piece that you pointed out, which came out in like the last week of due diligence, they did have credit card functionality, but it needed to be upgraded because it was basically like not functioning for a lot of the machines.
Right.
And that was, as you estimated correctly, about a $35,000 upgrade I'd be walking into in that new year. I would not have offered what I offered if I had known that variable.
Well, that's what the due diligence. I mean, you had those 30 days to counter that offer if you found stuff during it. If you find stuff during a diligence process that you're not happy with or that might change what you want to pay, it's well within your legal rights to do that. You started thinking, and the competitor. So I basically said, if I were you, I would insist on seeing the most recent numbers, October, November, and even December if it came to that. So we parted ways. You got the numbers. And then what do those numbers look like?
Yeah, so those numbers showed probably like over that span of 3 months, like a 12 to 15% decline.
Right. So it was already starting. Some of that could have been the economy. Some of it could have been
December
seasonality.
Is slow for them. They said, that was like an indicator of saying,
that was your first moment. That was my
first moment of pause, like significant pause, because I didn't have a crystal ball to see what the long-term or even mid-term impact that competitor was going to have on this business.
Even though you knew that competitor was beautiful.
And I went there. I talked to him. He spent 25 minutes with me. So like I already knew, that was like a big
red flag. After we went through the numbers and we talked things through, I remember saying something else to you that I never knew if it had any impact on your decision or not. So I remember saying, listen, $400,000 is a lot of money to tie up in the hopes that you're going to make $5,000 or $6,000 a month, maybe $7,000 if all goes well in return. I said, you could put $400,000 into certain mutual funds with a little more risk and get anywhere from an 8, 9, 10% return and do nothing. And I said, so if I were you, I'd really think twice about putting money into this business that has risk. You don't know what your competitor's impact is going to be a year from now. I was encouraging you to just think about how much money your own capital could generate without any risk. Well, I mean, there is risk, of course, if you're doing an 8% mutual fund, but not risk like, will this business make it? Won't it make it? Am I going to have headaches of employees, et cetera? So did that, when I said that, did that have any impact?
So I think that came at like the perfect time, because that was when I felt like I kind of started to detach a little bit from this deal after we met and we talked about that, because I know what the stock market will return if you put it in and do nothing and don't touch it.
Right. So
like I already had that. I was proof of that.
Because yours was a cash deal.
Exactly. Right. So I was like, oh no. Like that was when I was and then on top of that, I then started to fully understand the triple net lease and what that means. I didn't know that 60 days prior. So like it was all these data points that then I was like, oh my gosh. And then I had a call, I think a day after meeting with you, where I met the other owner for the first time. I'd met one of them, I met the other one a few weeks later, and
were they like business partners?
They were a couple.
Okay, so they were married, so they were.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and I saw for the first time how involved she was on an hourly basis in the business.
Another reason to meet the owners, because that won't be known when you receive information on paper.
Yes.
So just from speaking to both the owners,
Yes.
you realize one of them was pretty involved.
Very involved, like texting.
Not so passive.
It wasn't passive at all. And so just all these pieces where I was like, wow. And someone said this to me, like, are you buying yourself another job? The upside had a ceiling.
Right.
Maybe I could have raised prices like you pointed out.
Well, not just that.
But
you
it had a ceiling.
would have been paying a lot
Mm-hmm.
if you thought that you were setting yourself up for this great income stream where you didn't have to do as much of that. It might be worth it.
Yes.
So you go back, and I remember we had a few back and forth texts, and I think I thought of 10 other things. You ended up going back before the 30 days were up,
Mm-hmm.
and walk us through how you counter-offered your own offer.
Yeah.
This is Laundry List, the best place for brainwashing.
Love it. That's good.